The scariest mysteries are unsolved to this day. Whether it's a lack of crime scene evidence or a big mistake made in the investigation, these true crime stories still need explaining, even though it may be decades later or more before these unsolved cases are finally solved. Number 5. On April 26, 2003, a famous true crime mystery occurred when 3 works of art were stolen from the Whitworth Art Gallery in Manchester, England. The £4 million art heist included stolen works from Picasso and Van Gogh. The criminals were caught on camera and managed to circumnavigate an expensive security system, including a CCTV surveillance system and alarms. 2 days later, an anonymous tipster called the Manchester Police Department and told case investigators that the missing paintings could be found in an out-of-order public bathroom near Whitworth Park. There, crime scene investigators found the 3 stolen works stuffed into a damp cardboard tube. Affixed to the tube was a handwritten note from the criminals, explaining how their intention was not to steal, only to highlight the woeful security. Other than the mysterious note, the art heist thieves left no clues, leaving expert crime investigators completely baffled. But despite the safe return of the paintings, the unsolved heist remains a priority case because the 3 paintings had been damaged. Just the simple act of removing the artwork from the frames and rolling them was enough to compromise the aged paintings, which were further stressed by the damp conditions they were left in. The unsolved mystery remains open with crime investigators at the Manchester Police Department. If the story that case detectives believe is true, then the crime may have been committed by a former museum staff member, or else someone who was familiar with the gallery layout and security options. Anyone with missing information about the art robbery may contact the Greater Manchester Police Department by dialing 101 or visiting gmp.police.uk. Number 4. This is the unsolved true crime story of Ray Allison Berwinger, last seen at her ex-boyfriend's home in Priest River in 2019. 54-year-old Ray, a mother of at least 1 son who lived in Florida, had struggled with sobriety and was staying with family at the time of her mysterious disappearance. On March 3rd, Ray left her family's home and went to visit Jordan Law, an ex-boyfriend and former roommate who lived just down the road. Later, she called her brother-in-law to help her move her personal items out of her old home, and she had talked to her brother-in-law about taking a possible trip to Washington State. If what Jordan says is a true story, then she purchased a Pontiac Grand Am from him for $800 cash 1 day later, on the evening of March 4th. He told detectives that this was the last time he had seen Ray, who had become a missing person. However, there were several components of Jordan's story that suggested to investigators that a potential crime had taken place. On March 7th, Jordan had allegedly discovered the car he had just sold abandoned at an intersection a few miles away, and had it towed back. Case experts could not explain why Ray purchased a car and abandoned it 2 days later, and so they looked further into the case. Using Ray's debit card, CCTV footage showed Jordan making numerous ATM withdrawals at 2 banks in the area between March 4th and 6th. That means he somehow had her car and her card during the days of her mysterious disappearance. Jordan made a criminal confession to detectives that he had not told them a true story about selling her the car. According to an affidavit, he could not explain why he had made up this unusual story. He's been charged with a felony for fraudulent use of Ray's debit card and remains a person of interest in her unsolved case. However, there have been no further leads and no further crime scene evidence published since 2020. Anyone with information about Ray Berwinger's strange case or her current whereabouts is asked to contact the Bonner County Sheriff's Office at 208-263-8417. Number 3. On October 2nd, 1985, Sherry L. Warren and a coworker walked to their cars after a long day of management training at her job at the Utah State Employees Credit Union. Sherry was never seen again. Her family reported her as a missing person case on October 3rd. Her car was discovered a month later behind a casino hotel on the Las Vegas Strip. This crime scene evidence provided investigators with clues as to what might have happened in Sherry's unsolved case. Investigators tried to solve her case by interviewing Charles Warren, her ex-husband. He didn't answer a knock at his door, and his boss at Southern Pacific Railroad said he had taken a short leave of absence. When criminal investigators found him on October 4th, he said he had no idea what had happened to Sherry, and he had spent the night at the home of his first wife, a woman named Alice. Alice confirmed Charles's alibi and even agreed to take a polygraph test. But both Alice and Charles abruptly chose to stop cooperating with the investigation before a lie detector test could be administered. Crime investigators also turned to Sherry's new boyfriend, Kerry Hartman. Kerry told police in an interview that he had plans to meet up with Sherry at his apartment late on the night of the 2nd, and was concerned when she never showed up. He was unable to explain where Sherry might be, and he'd spent the evening at a bar called Sebastian's. An ex-cop himself, Kerry told investigators that he'd heard from Sherry that Charles had been threatening her in a dispute over alimony or child support. As the true crime story goes, Sherry's missing car turned up 6 weeks later, and more than 400 miles away in Las Vegas. Detectives theorized Charles or Kerry had ditched it shortly after committing the crime. Charles Warren worked for the railroad and could hypothetically have traveled back with ease. When searching for evidence to support this crime story, investigators found no routes near Las Vegas operated by Charles's company. Using a 1985 timetable supplied to them from Western Airlines, investigators confirmed it was possible for someone to drive Sherry's car to Las Vegas on the night of her disappearance and board a flight the following morning to Salt Lake City, arriving in Utah early on the 3rd. Sherry's boyfriend, Kerry, told police that she was working the morning of October 3rd, meaning he could not have been in Las Vegas. 2 years later, in 1987, is when this unbelievable true crime case came to an unexpected ending. Kerry was arrested for 4 crimes against women in Ogden, Utah. During this investigation, his time card for his job at Weber State revealed new evidence in Sherry's case. On October 3rd, 1985, the day he said he was at work all day, the time card proved he had mysteriously taken 8 hours off. This event coincided with their criminal timeline that placed him taking a late-night flight home after ditching Sherry's car. The strange circumstances surrounding Sherry's disappearance is a mystery that remains unsolved. Anyone with missing information may contact the Weber County Attorney General's office at 801-399-8618 or the Roy Police Department at 801-629-8221. Number 2. In 2003, 2 mysterious letters signed under the name Fallen Angel would become one of the most famous true crime cases in US history. In each of the letters was a sealed metal container containing a white grainy substance known as ricin, a substance derived from the castor bean plant that can have severe effects upon exposure. Investigators were relieved to find the seal on the metal container was unbroken, and more importantly, only contained a minor amount of the poison. However, Fallen Angel warned that much larger quantities would be made if they were ignored. The first letter, which was isolated at a US postal facility in Greenville, South Carolina, was a typed document in which Fallen Angel claimed to be the fleet owner of a tanker company. At the time, a federal law was scheduled to go into effect on January 4th, 2004, that would mandate more hours of rest for drivers, which Fallen Angel did not want negatively affecting the productivity of his company. In the second letter, processed at a mail office 2 days later in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and heading for the White House, Fallen Angel said they were prepared to go after the water supply and turn Washington, D.C. into a ghost town. The CDC was on high alert for any mystery ailments that could resemble a mass exposure. No such cases arrived, and no additional letters were ever found. There was another incident in February of 2004. However, it was never officially connected to the Fallen Angel mailings. The letters did not achieve their intended purpose. In 2004, the federal regulations surrounding truck drivers went into place as scheduled. An FBI investigation has special agents still trying to solve the mystery behind the mysterious mailings, which remain unsolved despite a $100,000 reward. Anyone with information concerning Fallen Angel or the infamous letters should contact the FBI at 1-866-839-6241. Number 1. The strange but true story of Tammy Niver begins in the summer of 1993. The 24-year-old mother of two had recently broken up with her boyfriend, Gregory Agnew, and was in the process of moving out of the home they shared. According to Tammy's sister, she had feared for her life. Gregory would allegedly screen Tammy's calls, trash their apartment, and regularly berate her. However, according to Gregory, she was simply jealous of the fact that he talked to other women. As the true crime story goes, Tammy went to her former home late at night or early in the morning of August 7, 1993, to pick up some of her belongings. If the story he gives is true, Gregory told investigators that he drove off at around 2:30 in the morning, and he hasn't seen her since. He remains the last person to have ever seen Tammy. At around 11 a.m. on August 7th, Tammy's car, a 1979 Mercury Marquis that she'd borrowed from a friend for moving purposes, was found still running in the middle of the road. There were no signs of Tammy, and her case remains an unsolved mystery. Tammy is a diabetic and requires insulin 3 times a day. She was not believed to have had her medication with her when she went missing, and she's not been known to fill it since. According to true crime reports, Gregory was spotted by a police officer at 3:30 a.m. on August 7th, about a mile from where Tammy's vehicle was later discovered, pants wet from the knees down. When police investigated his apartment a few days later, they observed a strong smell of bleach despite the fact that the apartment itself was messy. However, there was ultimately not enough evidence to prove that Gregory was associated with Tammy's absence. Shortly after Tammy went missing, a friend of hers named Martha McGeorge took temporary custody of her 2 children. Police approached Martha and asked her to help them collect evidence regarding Tammy's disappearance. Martha consented to wearing a wire while she tried to get Gregory to make a criminal confession. Instead, she started dating Gregory. The pair stayed together for years, even marrying in 2014. All the while, police had no criminal leads on Tammy's missing person case, Gregory related or otherwise. Years later, Martha stopped answering calls in 2018. Her daughter contacted her estranged stepfather, Gregory, who was divorcing Martha, and said that he hadn't seen Martha but would give her daughter the keys to the home that they formerly shared. On February 17, 2018, Martha's daughter discovered her missing body on the floor of her townhome in Michigan. Like Tammy 25 years earlier, Martha had passed away in the middle of a messy breakup with Gregory. The crime scene most likely had been staged to look like Martha had accidentally passed away from too much partying. But forensic evidence found that in addition to being injected with substances, she was at some point struck and deprived of air. In 2019, Gregory was sentenced to life in prison. True crime investigators believe that Gregory's criminal motives were to prevent Martha from getting their home in the divorce, and to stop her from speaking about what she knew about Tammy. Prosecutors hope that this conviction will provide additional motivation for Gregory to confess to his criminal role in Tammy's unsolved disappearance. Her unexplained case remains a mystery, and Gregory still has not been charged. Anyone with information about Tammy Niver is asked to contact Washtenaw County Sheriff's Detective Mike Babitz at 734-973-4977. Or leave an anonymous tip through Crime Stoppers at 1-800-SPEAK-UP. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But my name is Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.